Welcome to Cozy Sleep Haven. Wind down, snuggle up, and let's get cozy. Tonight's episode invites you to join Grace, our serene meditation guide, as she spends a rainy day surrounded by the calming magic of Havenport Stables. We'll meet a trio of unforgettable horses, each with their own unique charm and wisdom, and learn that sometimes the best life advice comes with a mane and a tail, whether it's a wise mare's quiet strength, a playful pony's knack for getting into trouble, or a draft horse's grounding calm. This story reminds us that animals have a way of teaching us exactly what we need, usually without saying a word. Here at Cozy Sleep Haven, we celebrate life's most comforting moments, whether it's the soothing sound of rain on a barn roof, the gentle nicker of a curious pony, or the timeless peace found in connecting with animals. If that feels like your kind of cozy, subscribe and join our growing community. Your support helps us create even more stories to guide you into restful nights. So snuggle up and let's step into the warm, inviting world of Havenport Stables. The rain fell steadily outside, its soft patter against the tall windows of Grace's studio, creating a rhythmic melody. The room was a sanctuary of calm, bathed in warm golden light from the small table lamps placed thoughtfully around the space. A faint scent of lavender lingered in the air, mingling with the earthy freshness carried in by the rain. Inside, a circle of cushions surrounded a central wooden table where a single flickering candle cast dancing shadows on the walls. Grace sat cross-legged on a cushion at the head of the circle, her soft brown hair pulled back loosely, and her voice low and soothing. She gazed around the room, her presence warm and grounding. "Let's begin," Grace said, her tone a quiet invitation. "Close your eyes if you'd like, and take a deep breath in, and let it out slowly, releasing the tension in your shoulders and jaw." The rain outside seemed to soften, as though listening to her words. Grace continued, her voice weaving through the space like a gentle current. "Feel the floor beneath you, solid and steady. Imagine the studio wrapping you in its cozy embrace, a safe haven where the world outside fades into the background." The room grew still, the only sound the gentle rhythm of the rain and the quiet inhales and exhales of those present. Grace's eyes softened as she guided them deeper into relaxation. Picture yourself walking along a quiet path toward a warm, welcoming barn. The sound of rain on the barn's roof blends with the soft snorts of horses inside, their presence grounding and calm. Her voice dipped lower, carrying the image further. Step inside and feel the warmth surround you. The scent of hay and fresh rain fills the air, comforting and familiar. A horse approaches, its eyes kind and curious. You feel its breath, warm and steady, a reminder to slow down and simply be. The candle's light flickered, casting a soft glow over the studio as Grace let the image settle in their minds. With each breath, allow yourself to feel connected to the steady rhythm of the rain, the calm presence of the horse, and the peaceful energy of this moment. A quiet peace filled the room. the sound of the rain outside creating a gentle backdrop for Grace's closing words. As we bring this moment to a close, carry this sense of calm with you. Let it guide you through the day ahead, like the steady rhythm of hooves on soft earth. Grace's gaze swept over the serene faces of those around her, her heart swelling with quiet joy. The rain continued its song outside, wrapping the studio in its soothing embrace. As the group began to stir, Grace smiled, knowing the day's journey was only just beginning. The rain fell in a soft, steady rhythm as Grace stepped out of her studio, her umbrella unfurling with a quiet click. The misty streets of Havenport stretched before her, the cobblestones glistening under the faint glow of street lamps. The scent of rain-dampened earth filled the air, mingling with the distant tang of the sea. Grace's boots made soft, deliberate sounds against the wet ground as she walked, her destination just outside the town's edge. The Havenport Stables came into view, its red barn standing proudly against the backdrop of rain-soaked hills. The building's worn wood seemed to glow under the muted light of the overcast sky, inviting in its simplicity. As she approached, the barn door stood slightly ajar, golden light spilling out into the grayness of the day. Inside, the comforting sounds of the stables greeted her, the rustling of hay, the occasional soft nicker of a horse, and the rhythmic patter of rain on the barn roof. A faint warmth radiated from within, contrasting with the cool mist outside. Henry, the stable's caretaker, appeared in the doorway, his weathered face breaking into a welcoming smile. His thick woolen sweater was speckled with stray pieces of hay, and he held a steaming mug of coffee in his hand. "Perfect day to visit, isn't it?" he called out warmly. "The horses are always calmer in the rain." Grace returned his smile, stepping into the barn and shaking the rain from her umbrella. "It feels like the perfect day for this," she said, her voice soft. "There's something about the rain that makes everything feel slower, quieter." Henry chuckled, nodding. "That's the beauty of it. The horses seem to pick up on it too. Come on in. I've got a few friends I'd like you to meet." The barn was cozy and alive with the presence of the horses. Their heads peeked out from their stalls, their large, gentle eyes watching Grace with curiosity. The scent of fresh hay and the faint sweetness of oats filled the space, mingling with the ever-present sound of the rain on the roof. Henry gestured toward the first stall. "This here is Bellica," he said, patting the side of the stall door. Inside, an older mare with a soft chestnut coat gazed at Grace with calm eyes. "She's the matriarch around here, wise as they come and gentle as a summer breeze." Grace stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on the stall door. Bella leaned her head forward, her warm breath brushing against Grace's hand. "She's beautiful," Grace said, her voice filled with quiet admiration. "There's a calmness about her." "That's Bella for you," Henry replied. "She's been here longer than I have, and she's seen it all. We'll get to know her a bit better soon, but let's keep going." Grace followed Henry down the row of stalls, her steps falling into rhythm with the rain outside. She could feel the calm energy of the barn wrapping around her like a blanket, each moment drawing her deeper into the quiet magic of the day. The barn's warmth enveloped Grace as she followed Henry further down the row of stalls, each one housing its own gentle presence. The horses moved quietly, their soft snorts and the occasional rustling of hay blending with the rain's steady rhythm outside. The ambiance felt grounding, as if the barn itself had taken on the calm, steady energy of its inhabitants. Henry stopped at the next stall, gesturing with his coffee mug. "This here is Daisy," he said with a grin. "She's our little troublemaker." Inside the stall, a petite gray pony lifted her head, ears swiveling forward at the sound of her name. Her coat gleamed faintly in the low light, and her expressive eyes held a mischievous glint. Without hesitation, she trotted forward, nudging Henry's arm with her nose and causing him to chuckle. "See what I mean?" Henry said, patting her neck. "Daisy likes to get into everything, but she's got a heart of gold." Grace stepped closer, her smile widening. "She's adorable," she said, extending her hand. Daisy sniffed it curiously before giving Grace a playful nudge. "And curious, it seems." Henry nodded. "Always has been. She was born right here in this barn, and she's never outgrown her sense of wonder. Keeps me on my toes, that's for sure." As Grace ran her fingers gently along Daisy's neck, the pony leaned into her touch, her tail swishing contentedly. "There's something so grounding about being around animals like her," Grace said softly. "It's like they remind us how to just be." Henry smiled knowingly. "That's Daisy for you. She's got a way of making people feel present. But don't let her charm fool you. She's got a knack for finding trouble when you're not looking." Grace laughed, imagining Daisy sneaking around the barn, her inquisitive nature leading her into mischief. The pony's playful energy seemed to brighten the space, her presence a gentle counterpoint to the rain outside. Henry led Grace to the next stall, where a towering draft horse stood quietly, his massive frame taking up most of the space. His coat was a deep, rich bay, and his large, soulful eyes conveyed a calm, steady wisdom. "This is Max," Henry said, his tone softer. "He's our gentle giant." Grace approached slowly, feeling an almost magnetic pull toward the horse's serene presence. Max dipped his head slightly, his warm breath brushing against her outstretched hand. "He's beautiful," Grace murmured, her voice hushed. "There's such a peacefulness about him." Henry nodded. "That's Max for you. He's the heart of this barn, steady, dependable, and as kind as they come. He used to pull wagons at the town festivals, but these days, he's enjoying a quieter life." Grace ran her hand along Max's broad neck, marveling at his sheer size and the gentleness that seemed to radiate from him. "I can see why everyone here loves him," she said. "He has a way of making you feel anchored." Henry chuckled. "That's exactly it. Max has a calming effect on just about everyone who meets him." As they moved on, the barn felt even cozier, the horses' unique personalities filling the space with warmth and connection. Grace's heart felt lighter, as though the presence of these animals had a way of dissolving the noise of the outside world. The rain continued its steady cadence, a soothing backdrop to the quiet magic unfolding in the stables. The barn grew quieter as the rain softened outside, the sound a gentle backdrop to Grace's growing connection with the horses. Henry lingered by a stack of hay bales, sipping his coffee, while Grace returned to Daisy's stall. The playful little pony had captured her heart, her curious energy and mischievous glint reminding Grace of the joy found in life's small, unexpected moments. Daisy greeted her with a soft nicker, stepping forward to nudge Grace's arm. "You've made a friend," Henry called with a chuckle. "Once Daisy decides she likes you, there's no getting rid of her." Grace laughed, stepping into the stall carefully. Daisy's ears pricked forward and she nudged Grace again, this time more insistently. All right, Grace said softly, stroking the pony's neck. "You have my full attention." Henry handed Grace a brush over the stall door. "She loves a good brushing. It's her favorite way to bond. Well, that, and sneaking treats when she thinks I'm not looking." Grace took the brush and began running it gently over Daisy's coat. The repetitive motion felt soothing, not just for Daisy, but for herself as well. The pony leaned into the strokes, her eyes half closing in contentment. "She's so expressive," Grace said, marveling at how clearly Daisy communicated her feelings. "She's a smart one," Henry said. "Sometimes too smart, but she's got a good heart, loves people, loves attention, and she always seems to know when someone needs cheering up." As Grace worked, she felt a deep sense of calm settle over her. Daisy's steady presence, combined with the rhythmic brushing and the sound of rain outside, created a moment of pure connection. "It's amazing how grounding this is," she said. "Just being here with her, doing something so simple." Daisy suddenly turned her head, resting it lightly against Grace's shoulder. Grace froze for a moment, caught off guard by the pony's affection, before a warm smile spread across her face. "Well, I guess we're officially friends now." Henry smiled knowingly. "That's Daisy for you. She's got a way of making you feel like you belong. It's why everyone who comes here falls in love with her." The moment felt almost magical. The kind of connection that couldn't be forced or planned. Grace continued brushing Daisy, the pony's quiet trust filling her with a sense of peace she hadn't realized she needed. "It's funny," Grace said after a moment. "I came here hoping to feel grounded, and here I am, being reminded of how simple it can be." Henry leaned against the stall door, his expression soft. Horses have a way of doing that. They live in the moment. Don't dwell on the past. Don't worry about the future. They're just here. Grace nodded, running her fingers through Daisy's mane. The pony nickered softly, her playful energy giving way to a quiet calm that mirrored the rainy day outside. Grace felt a deep gratitude for the connection, for the reminder that sometimes the simplest things, a brush, a pony, a rainy day, could bring the greatest sense of peace. The barn grew quieter as the rain softened outside, the sound a gentle backdrop to Grace's growing connection with the horses. Henry lingered by a stack of hay bales, sipping his coffee, while Grace returned to Daisy's stall. The playful little pony had captured her heart. Her curious energy and mischievous glint, reminding Grace of the joy found in life's small, unexpected moments. Daisy greeted her with a soft nicker, stepping forward to nudge Grace's arm. "You've made a friend," Henry called with a chuckle. "Once Daisy decides she likes you, there's no getting rid of her." Grace laughed, stepping into the stall carefully. Daisy's ears pricked forward and she nudged Grace again, this time more insistently. All right, Grace said softly, stroking the pony's neck. "You have my full attention." Henry handed Grace a brush over the stall door. She loves a good brushing. It's her favorite way to bond. Well, that, and sneaking treats when she thinks I'm not looking. Grace took the brush and began running it gently over Daisy's coat. The repetitive motion felt soothing, not just for Daisy, but for herself as well. The pony leaned into the strokes, her eyes half closing in contentment. "She's so expressive," Grace said, marveling at how clearly Daisy communicated her feelings. "She's a smart one," Henry said, "sometimes too smart, but she's got a good heart, loves people, loves attention, and she always seems to know when someone needs cheering up." As Grace worked, she felt a deep sense of calm settle over her. Daisy's steady presence, combined with the rhythmic brushing and the sound of rain outside, created a moment of pure connection. "It's amazing how grounding this is," she said. "Just being here with her, doing something so simple." Daisy suddenly turned her head, resting it lightly against Grace's shoulder. Grace froze for a moment, caught off guard by the pony's affection, before a warm smile spread across her face. "Well, I guess we're officially friends now." Henry smiled knowingly. "That's Daisy for you. She's got a way of making you feel like you belong. It's why everyone who comes here falls in love with her." The moment felt almost magical. The kind of connection that couldn't be forced or planned. Grace continued brushing Daisy, the pony's quiet trust filling her with a sense of peace she hadn't realized she needed. "It's funny," Grace said after a moment. "I came here hoping to feel grounded, and here I am, being reminded of how simple it can be." Henry leaned against the stall door, his expression soft. Horses have a way of doing that. They live in the moment, don't dwell on the past, don't worry about the future. They're just here. Grace nodded, running her fingers through Daisy's mane. The pony nickered softly, her playful energy giving way to a quiet calm that mirrored the rainy day outside. Grace felt a deep gratitude for the connection, for the reminder that sometimes the simplest things, a brush, a pony, a rainy day, could bring the greatest sense of peace. As Grace stepped away from Daisy's stall, her heart still warm from their newfound bond, Henry motioned toward another stall nearby. Inside stood Bella, the wise chestnut mare, her coat gleaming softly in the golden light of the barn. She watched Grace with calm, steady eyes, as though she carried the wisdom of many seasons. "Bella here is a special one," Henry said, his voice quiet but filled with affection. She's been with us for years, and she's seen her share of challenges. Grace approached the stall, resting her hand lightly on the door. Bella stepped forward slowly, her movements deliberate and gentle. Grace extended her hand, and Bella lowered her head, her breath warm against Grace's palm. "She feels steady," Grace said softly, "like she's seen it all and come out stronger." Henry nodded, his gaze on the mare. "That's exactly what she is. Bella came to us after a rough start. She'd been overworked, underfed, and had little trust left in people. It took a long time for her to feel safe here. But she's got the kind of spirit you can't break." Grace's heart ached at the thought of what Bella had endured. She stepped closer, her voice gentle as she spoke to the mare. "And now she's found peace," Grace said. "You can feel it in her presence." Henry smiled. "She's not just found peace. She's become a source of it for others. There's something about Bella that puts people at ease. She's helped nervous riders find their confidence, worked with kids who needed a little extra patience, and even been a companion to folks just needing quiet company." Grace reached out to stroke Bella's neck, her fingers moving lightly over the mare's soft coat. Bella leaned into the touch, her eyes closing halfway in contentment. "She's amazing," Grace said, her voice filled with admiration. "There's such a quiet strength about her." "She's taught me more than I ever thought I'd learn from a horse," Henry said, "about patience, resilience, and how trust can be rebuilt, even when it's been broken." The rain outside grew heavier for a moment, its rhythm filling the barn like a gentle drumbeat. Grace let the sound wash over her as she continued stroking Bella's neck. "It's incredible how much animals can teach us," she said, "about healing, about connection." Bella shifted slightly, nudging Grace's shoulder with her muzzle. Grace smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the mare's calm presence. "Thank you, Bella," she said softly, "for reminding me how to be still." Henry leaned against the stall door, his expression thoughtful. "She's got a way of doing that, doesn't she? Just by being herself." Grace stepped back, her hand lingering on the stall door for a moment. "She's a gift," she said, her voice quiet, "and a reminder that no matter what we've been through, there's always a way to find peace again." The rain softened once more, its gentle patter creating a cocoon of calm around them. Grace turned to Henry, her heart full. "I think Bella's exactly who I needed to meet today." Henry smiled, leading her toward another part of the barn. "Well, there's one more friend here who might have something to share with you, too." Grace followed, eager to see what the next moment in the stables would bring. Henry led Grace to the farthest stall, where Max, the gentle draft horse, stood waiting. His massive frame filled the space, his dark bay coat shimmering in the soft barn light. Max's kind eyes followed Grace as she approached, his calm energy grounding and steady. "He's our gentle giant," Henry said, patting Max's neck affectionately. "Always patient, always steady. If Bella's the soul of this barn, Max is its heart." Grace stepped closer, feeling Max's warm breath against her hand as she extended it. The horse dipped his head slightly, allowing her to stroke his broad forehead. He feels so solid, Grace said, her voice soft, like nothing could ever shake him. That's Max, Henry replied with a smile. He's been with us for years, pulling wagons at town festivals, teaching kids how to ride. He's the kind of horse that makes you feel like everything's going to be okay. Henry gestured toward the barn doors. The reins lightened up. Why don't you take him for a little walk? He loves being out in weather like this. Grace nodded, a warm smile spreading across her face. I'd love that. Henry handed her a lead rope, and Grace carefully clipped it to Max's halter. Together they stepped out into the drizzle, the cool mist brushing against Grace's cheeks as the barn door creaked closed behind them. The rain was soft now, a gentle patter on the earth, the air fresh and filled with the scent of damp grass and soil. Max walked beside Grace with a slow, deliberate pace, his hooves pressing into the soft ground with a rhythmic cadence. The world felt quieter here, as though the rain had softened the edges of everything. Grace let the moment wash over her. The connection between her and Max, unspoken but undeniable. As they walked through the pasture, the trees swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves shimmering with droplets of rain. Max lowered his head to graze for a moment, his movements unhurried and deliberate. Grace paused, her hand resting lightly on his neck, feeling the strength and calm he exuded. You're incredible, Max, she said softly. There's something about being with you that makes everything feel simpler. Max flicked his ears as though acknowledging her words, and lifted his head to continue walking. Grace fell into step beside him, their shared rhythm mirroring the steady patter of rain. The quiet was comforting, the kind of silence that didn't feel empty, but full of presence, of connection, of peace. They reached the edge of the pasture, where a small wooden fence overlooked Havenport's rolling hills. The rain created a soft haze over the landscape, blurring the edges of the world into something dreamlike. Max stood still, his large frame a grounding presence against the vastness of the view. Grace rested her hand on his neck, letting out a deep breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain, for reminding me how to slow down. Max turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting hers with a quiet understanding. It was a moment of pure connection, as though the horse knew exactly what she needed, without a single word exchanged. As they made their way back to the barn, Grace felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for Max, but for the day itself. The rain, the barn, the horses. It all felt like a gift, a reminder of the beauty found in the simplest moments. Henry was waiting at the barn door when they returned, a warm smile on his face. How was it? He asked. Perfect, Grace replied, her voice soft but certain. Max has a way of making everything feel right. Henry nodded knowingly. That's the magic of him. Grace led Max back to his stall, giving him a final stroke along his neck. The barn's warmth wrapped around her again as she stepped inside, the sound of the rain still steady outside. She felt lighter, calmer, and more connected than she had in a long time. Back in the barn, the cozy warmth seemed even more inviting after the quiet walk in the rain. Grace gently hung up Max's lead rope and gave the gentle draft horse a final pat before turning her attention to Daisy's stall. The little pony had her head over the door, her curious eyes following Grace's every move. "Looks like someone's waiting for you," Henry said with a chuckle, nodding toward Daisy. "She's not done making her impression, it seems." Grace smiled, approaching the stall as Daisy gave a soft whinny of recognition. "All right, what are you up to now?" she asked, her tone playful. As if in response, Daisy reached out with her nose, nudging a small bucket sitting just outside her stall. The bucket tipped over with a soft clatter, spilling a handful of apples onto the barn floor. Daisy immediately nudged one toward Grace, her ears flicking forward in an almost comical display of innocence. Henry let out a hearty laugh. "See what I mean? She's always got something up her sleeve, or should I say, her hoof." Grace knelt to pick up an apple, holding it up to Daisy with a grin. "You're lucky you're adorable," she said. Daisy took the apple gently from Grace's hand, crunching it with obvious delight. "She's got a knack for turning even the simplest moments into something memorable," Henry said, leaning against the stall door. "Keeps the barn lively, that's for sure." Grace stayed crouched near the pony, watching as Daisy playfully nudged another apple toward her, as though offering to share. "You've got quite the personality," Grace said, stroking Daisy's neck, "and a way of making everyone around you smile." Henry nodded. "She's a little troublemaker, but she's got the biggest heart. Whenever the kids come by, she's the one they always want to see. And she's patient too. Lets them braid her mane, paint her hooves, whatever makes them happy." As Grace reached for another apple, Daisy leaned her head against her shoulder, her warm breath tickling Grace's hair. The pony's playful energy softened into a moment of affection, and Grace felt her heart swell. "You're one of a kind, aren't you?" she murmured. Henry's voice was warm. "That's Daisy. She reminds us that even in the quietest corners of life, there's always room for a little joy." Grace stood, brushing a stray piece of hay from her jeans, and gave Daisy a final pat. The pony whickered softly, her bright eyes following Grace as she stepped back from the stall. "Thank you, Daisy," Grace said, her tone light but sincere, "for the mischief and for the reminder to find joy wherever we can." The rain outside continued its steady cadence, a soothing counterpoint to the warmth and light inside the barn. Grace turned to Henry, a smile playing on her lips. "She's something special," she said. "That she is," Henry agreed. "And I think she knows it." As Grace glanced back at Daisy one last time, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of connection, not just to the pony, but to the entire day. Each moment had felt like a gift, a reminder of the grounding and joy that animals could bring into life's simplest moments. The barn's warmth wrapped around Grace like a quilt as she prepared to leave. The rain outside had softened into a faint drizzle, the misty air visible through the open barn doors. Each moment spent with the horses felt like a treasured memory, stitched together by the steady rhythm of the day. Henry joined her at the doorway, his hands resting on the straps of his overalls. "Thanks for coming by today," he said, his tone warm. The horses always seemed to appreciate the company. Grace glanced back at the stalls, where Bella stood calmly. Max rested his head against the wooden door, and Daisy watched with bright curiosity. "Thank you for letting me spend time with them," she replied. "Each one feels like they've shared something special, like they've taught me something." Henry smiled, his gaze drifting to the horses. "They've got a way of doing that. You come here thinking you're just spending time with animals, but you leave feeling like you've gained a little perspective." Grace nodded, her thoughts lingering on Bella's resilience, Max's calm strength, and Daisy's playful joy. "They reminded me of the importance of slowing down," she said, "of being present in the moment and finding peace in the simple things." "That's their magic," Henry said. "They live in the now. They don't worry about yesterday or tomorrow. They just are." As Grace gathered her umbrella, Daisy gave a soft nicker, her ears flicking forward as though to say goodbye. Grace chuckled, walking over to the stall one last time. "All right, Daisy," she said, stroking the pony's neck. "You win. I'll be back soon." The little pony nudged her shoulder, and Grace laughed softly. Turning back to Henry, she said, "I think I've made a friend for life." "Once Daisy claims you, there's no going back," Henry replied, his grin wide. "She's got a knack for picking good people." Grace gave a final wave to the horses and stepped out into the misty rain. The cobblestone path leading away from the barn glistened under the dim light of the overcast sky. She paused for a moment, listening to the soft patter of rain on her umbrella and the faint rustle of trees in the breeze. As she walked toward town, her thoughts lingered on the barn and its peaceful inhabitants. The day had felt like a gift, a reminder of the grounding power of connection. Whether with people, animals, or the world around her, each horse had left its mark on her, their quiet lessons weaving into her thoughts like threads in a tapestry. By the time Grace reached the edge of Havenport, the rain had slowed to a light drizzle, the town's warm lights glowing through the mist. She felt lighter, calmer, and more in tune with herself than she had in weeks. The barn, the rain, and the horses had reminded her of the beauty in life's simplest moments, and the peace that came from truly being present. Grace stepped into the quiet streets of Havenport, her umbrella shielding her from the last drops of rain. The steady rhythm of her footsteps and the soft hum of the town at dusk carried her forward, a calm smile settling on her face as she made her way home. The rain outside continued its gentle rhythm, a soothing backdrop to the quiet warmth of the evening. As Grace walked home, her thoughts lingered on the simple beauty of the day, the steady presence of the horses, the soft sounds of the barn, and the grounding calm of the rain. Imagine yourself now, back in that cozy barn. The scent of hay lingers in the air, mingling with the earthy freshness of rain. The sound of gentle nickers and the occasional soft shuffle of hooves fills the space, wrapping you in a sense of peace. Each horse, with its unique personality, has shared a quiet lesson. Bella's resilience, Max's calm strength, and Daisy's playful joy. Picture the barn lights glowing softly in the misty evening, casting a warm golden hue across the rain-dappled world. The barn doors stand open, inviting in the cool, clean air as the steady rhythm of raindrops provides a melody of calm. As you take a deep breath, feel the weight of the day melt away. Imagine yourself leaning gently against Max's broad shoulder, his calm presence grounding and steady. Or perhaps you're brushing Daisy's soft coat, her playful energy bringing a smile to your face. Each breath carries you deeper into this comforting scene. The barn's warmth and the rain's soothing song surrounding you. Let the simple, quiet moments of the day settle in your mind, each one a patch in the quilt of this rainy Havenport afternoon. Feel the softness of the barn's embrace, the grounding energy of the horses, and the peace that comes from slowing down and connecting with the present. With each breath, let your body relax further. Imagine the steady rhythm of Max's hooves, the gentle patter of rain, and the soft nicker of Bella as a lullaby for your mind. The barn fades into the background now, leaving only its warmth and calm in your heart, as the rain outside your own window carries you into stillness. May the lessons of the horses stay with you. Resilience, calm, and joy, they are always within reach, waiting to guide you toward peace. Good night, and sweet dreams. May your rest be as comforting as the barn's warmth, and as steady as the rhythm of the rain.